Hey everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and it is time for another Velocity RX podcast. And today I have a very special guest. I met him on a cesspool. Well, many people know what the cesspool is. It's a cesspool of politics and unfortunately sports, and a lot having to do with baseball, and that is Twitter, formerly X. And the site's not the cesspool, it's the people on it. And we're here to talk about today about pitching injuries, how the youth of America, the parents of America are being misled. The injury rate is through the roof. And this is just a common guy who just realized all of this happening, a former coach. I'll let him talk about it. But he's literally looking through not rose-colored glasses, real glasses with real lenses, no pun intended since he's wearing glasses today, to see what is going on. His name is David Myers, and we're connecting from all the way across the country. He's in Washington State. So, David, thank you for coming on today. I am so looking forward to just having a conversation of a like-minded human being about the incident of injury in youth baseball, especially with the baseball pitcher. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Doug. I appreciate it. I'm excited about this topic. I'm passionate about it because I love what you're doing. Get the word out because parents need to hear the other side of the story. You know, they're being sold a lot of training strategies that I think are leading to this huge, terrible trend of youth kids tearing their arms up. And obviously, the MLB, the trend is just skyrocketing every single year. It seems like you can't go 2 weeks without finding out somebody's has a season-ending surgery, and now it's happening in spring training. Even like it's absurd.
I mean, if you're a Yankee fan, they've lost 4 pitchers in the last 3 weeks. Three, it's insane. So tell us a little about you, how you became involved in baseball, and how this now is a crusade of yours to get the word out to be like, look, this is a cult of injury. I call it a cult, this whole velocity. Like somehow, Roger Clemens didn't throw 95, apparently. Like this,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just this cult. So tell us, give us a little history and tell us where you're at.
All right. Well, I am a baseball guy. I love the game. I've loved it since I was a wee boy. Obviously, I played high school baseball, played a little college ball, and I'm not one of those guys that pretend that I had an injury that I was going to be an MLB player. No, I was a JC kid, and I saw guys that were way better than me, and I was like, all right, um, I'm going to go ahead and hang them up and go after some real money. Love the game still. Coached for years. Coached for over a decade. This is my first year not coaching in ages because we moved from Arizona to Washington State, and I'm just not in the baseball world. I got two kids, and they're at different age groups. So instead of I'm just trying to be a dad now for at least until they graduate, and then I'll probably get right back into coaching. But yeah, I'm just being a dad and being a watcher. How I got into this discussion is actually because of my kids and because of coaching. I was originally when I got into this, I was in the Pacific Northwest, right where Driveline got its roots over here and close to Kent, where their home base is and where their original home was. And like any other baseball dad on the planet, my kids love the game, and I'm all about trying to help them have the most opportunity, like all the parents are, and coaches. Frankly, if I can find a new exercise or a new program that helps my kids get an advantage, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to lie, as long as it's healthy.
Yep.
And that is actually how I stumbled onto Driveline. I saw
And
what.
this is how many years ago?
Oh man, this is when they were in their original facility in Kent when they had. I know you're not up here, so like we're talking, it was a small organization. They hadn't, other than a handful of people, it really wasn't known outside of Washington State. And this is the beginning when Trevor Bauer was there. Like we walked in
Hmm.
and saw him because he was one of their very first adapters with the name. And yeah, we walked in, checked them out, and the fact that Trevor Bauer was in there implementing some of their stuff gave them instant credibility in my head. And I found out that kids were adding velo to their arm,
Hmm.
and I only thought about the short term. I wasn't even thinking, it increases the chance of injury or anything. So I was like, this is cool. We're going to dive into this. We got as far as buying Plyoballs and
So you put your kids on this program,
I did.
essentially. Okay.
I put an entire because they advertise, and we can get into a ton of this, but they advertise kids throwing and using their program as young as 11 years old. Like they actually try to sell these plyo ball kits with weighted balls and the anger
Age
band
11.
from age 11. Yeah, you can look it up on their website right now. I'm not making anything up. It says recommended for kids aged 11 to 13 in this plyo ball kit, and they sell with it their scheduled what they recommend, and basically they're having kids throw heavy balls. They're recommending it at 11. We didn't go that early. I've always been super careful. Like I wouldn't even let my kids throw a curveball until they were 14. That's not an exaggeration. I was just, I knew that that's an extra stressor, and they're young
Mhm.
and they're molding, and so we played around and found a changeup that they could throw with the arm action of a fastball that had a little bit of a tail like a curveball. So I let my kids throw that because I felt like that was one of the safer ways to throw a baseball at that age. But that's how careful I was with my kids. And I mean, all the kids, like the travel ball kids, all the kids I've ever coached. I care about their health and enjoyment of the game more than throwing 3 extra miles an hour.
Okay.
That season, one of our kids, and I'm going to screw up the name of this, had a blue a ablution fracture, and usually
That's called an avulsion fracture.
avulsion fracture. Thank you very much. And
So
I
what
immediately
that is, yep. So what
yeah,
that
go for it.
is the tendon that when you're young and have a growth plate, your tendon is essentially almost stronger than the bone. So the
Mhm.
avulsion is ripping the soft tissue, sort of bony process off the growth plate. So if that were an adult kid or a kid who's fully grown, that would have been a Tommy John
Yep.
surgery. But
Yep.
the avulsion sometimes heals.
Yes.
Sometimes.
In this
Meaning
case,
like
the kid
meaning
did.
like your body's built correctly once, and then after
Mhm.
that, it's you gotta put it back together. But that is an incredibly serious injury.
Yep. And I one, at first, because we we don't think that we're at fault for things. We don't want to blame ourselves. There's no coach out there who wants to say I screwed up
Mm-hmm.
and I will stop doing what I'm doing right now and I will pivot. And but I talked to this kid's dad, and mind you, as a coach, this was my idea to do this. The kid's 14, and I thought, oh, most of all the stuff dangerous. We passed that at 14. No, he had the avulsion, and I immediately stopped all driveline stuff. I wasn't 100% sure that it was driveline stuff at the time. I just knew that this kid got hurt. It's under my watch. I got to figure out if anything I'm doing is a part of this. And then I started doing the deep dive on everything driveline related, and I found out that kids all over the Northwest were having this. Okay, I found out immediately in the same town another kid was doing it without me, without anything to do with me, had an avulsion fracture.
Now
And
that's a great question. How did you so quickly find this out when it's not publicized? Like I figured Shane Bieber going down last year would have
yeah,
been like earth shattering that people were looking into this plyo ball stuff, and
yeah,
nothing. 2 times Cy Young winner out for the year. No one batted an eyelash.
yeah. Well, fortunately, in the Northwest, there were a lot of driveline related things. And
Mm-hmm.
social media is already pretty strong at the time, and you could connect the dots. And Driveline themselves will never ever tell you that kids are getting injured or their athletes are getting injured in house because they are making good enough money. They moved from their little shacks in one part of Kent and moved into a giant facility where they could have a huge monster weight room. Um, as a warehouse to where they could ship out all the stuff they're selling online. They could do all their hitting, uh, batting cages. They have nets for trying to play long toss by yourself because obviously it's not a huge field. The place is massive, and Driveline's name over here was getting pretty big, to be
Okay.
completely frank with you. So big that other like copycats started popping up all over the place. And I won't name those, but Driveline's name got big and it got popular quick. And so it is not hard to find anyone over here that has had an injury and worked with Driveline. Like there's a lot of them, frankly. Um, Driveline knows about it. I'm sure that there is a percentage. I'm going to give Driveline a little bit of credit. I'm sure there's a percentage of people that they don't even know about, the kids that just stopped showing up, or the people that bought stuff online and adhered to their scheduled recommendations of workouts that got hurt and never went to Driveline and told them, "Hey, I did this. I did what you guys said, and I ended up needing a Tommy John." But they know of a lot of kids that were in house, like again, I'm not going to throw this kid under the bus. That came to me as a junior, and he had a full-on Tommy John surgery, and he was working directly in house with uh, Driveline. And there's tons of these examples out there. What I didn't realize is how fast and how integrated Driveline was becoming. I knew it was becoming a thing in Washington State. I didn't realize that Kyle and people that worked for him were getting jobs all over the place as, you know, what do you call it?
Consultants, yeah,
Consultants,
yeah,
you name it.
even, yep.
Pitching coaches. I mean, it was going. I mean, all of a sudden, Vanderbilt had like Driveline, and Vanderbilt's the biggest, name in college baseball as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, there's other schools popping up there, but Vanderbilt's been consistently great for a long time. And then all of a sudden, boom, two of their pitchers end up needing, almost.
I treated one of their pitchers. Yeah.
Which one?
Kranzler.
It's okay. What's that?
Kranzler. I got him.
Okay.
I saved his scholarship before
Oh, that's
because
fantastic.
he was the um, pitcher of New Jersey 2021, had a labral issue, throwing heavy balls in his
Yeah.
in his basement. Came to me, fixed his mechanics, but then went to go celebrity trainer. So I'm not sure what he's doing now. But
Yeah. Well, then I did the deep dive and tried to find out. Boom! All of a sudden, they're in Japan, and it's infected the entire baseball world, and it's breaking my heart because the increase and I'll use Driveline as a metaphor for all of their copycats as well because they started this trend. They did the deep dive and their stuff was adding velo, so kids are doing it. And now all of a sudden we're getting 50% of all uh, Tommy John surgeries are all of a sudden kids.
mm-hmm.
And ironically, I just saw that posted by Driveline this week. Their main Twitter post was this alarming trend. And I'm thinking, good God, do you not see that you're a huge reason why this is happening?
I did see that. I did see
And
that
it's all
post.
driven by money. I mean, there's
So let
zero
me ask
chance
you,
they don't
yeah.
know better.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. You're a baseball guy, but you're
Mhm.
not, you're not a medical guy, you're not a kinesiologist. How did you begin to look and say, wait a minute? Because the biggest problem I have in convincing parents is they're brainwashed. Like literally, I've had to come up with a disclaimer. Like I have, as a physical therapist with a license,
Yeah.
I'm a first reporter, right? I'm a first reporter, like or a mandated reporter, obviously, if there's child abuse or if there's injury. Like now you've told me that your son is injured and that you don't heed my advice or my warning, and you continue to
Yeah.
do like whether you train with me or not or go somewhere else, but if you don't heed my advice now, because the parents never going to blame themselves, never, right? They're going to turn it around. So I had to come up with like a cover my butt disclaimer that says, okay, you told me your kid was injured. Here were my recommendations. This is what you need to do so that someone doesn't come back at me and get sued. Because the problem with a lot of these places is they can't get sued. I can get sued. right? So as a baseball person, when did you realize that something is not right? Like, like, because if you go in, you've got 3,000 followers, I got less than that, Driveline's got 50 million. How did you finally realize that something is not right? Something in the water stinks.
Well, I'm embarrassed to say the first time I actually even crossed my mind was when we had an injury on our own team.
Okay.
That avulsion injury is what opened my eyes, and I had already spent, good money getting Plyoballs for our team. I stopped it immediately, and I realized very quickly, because after, it takes you a second, because we don't think that way. And I'll give some credit to the parents, because they're not thinking, hey, I'm putting my kid's arm in jeopardy. That's not the way they're thinking. They're thinking, how can I help my kid become the best that he can possibly be? You don't think, oh, what are the risk factors? And I wish that I could, because we do this with everything else. Like, when your kid turns 16, you're like, oh, I love my kid. I'm so happy that he now has his freedom, and I don't have to take him every single place he gets to drive. Well, wait a second. All right. The faster he drives, the more dangerous the situation is, right?
Sure, of course.
Really the same with these weighted baseballs and plyo balls. You're adding risk. And in this case, like, they're doing damage from the moment they start doing it. It's an accumulative effect until basically it's not a matter of if they have an injury with these techniques. It's a matter of when. And
When
here's
I
the
said it all the
craziest
time.
part. Here's the craziest part. If you, one of these guys tears their UCL, needs a Tommy John surgery, they don't compute that this is the cause of the injury. So how do they build up their strength back up 9 times out of 10? They do the
They go
same damn thing that got them
same
there to begin with. Look
same
at
thing. Yep.
Shohei Ohtani. You could, like, Shohei Ohtani. I love the guy, superstar. I'm absolutely a fan. He was a driveline guy. You could have seen him doing reverse pivot pickoffs with the plyo ball long before he tore his UCL. He tore it, rehab doing it, and now he's doing it a second time. Guess how he's rehabbing? I
Pro
guarantee
balls.
you.
Yep.
Yep,
He's
I
gonna
guarantee
he's
he's
gonna do
doing
it. He's gonna either retire from pitching, or
Yep.
he's going to be a 3-time loser like Nathan Eovaldi. He'll do it
Yeah.
again.
Because who's in his ear? Who's profiting from these rehabs, right?
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
and so they're not getting the full deal. They're not getting the full explanation of, they're just trying to get back to what they knew they were capable of at one point, and they don't know there are other avenues out there, and to increase velo, to do it safely. It may take more time. You may have to work more on technique to get there, but it's a safe way of pitching. And
No
you know,
free lunch.
yeah, there is no
So
free
like
lunch.
you said, you've taken a deep dive into people so now, getting away from the people that you don't like,
Yeah.
you've taken a deep dive into obviously finding people that are doing it correctly,
Yep.
because contrary to popular belief, Nolan Ryan threw pretty hard. Roger Clemens threw hard. Pedro Martinez threw hard. Kurt Schilling threw hard. These guys did not have Tommy John injury. The only guy in the Hall of Fame that has had Tommy John surgery is Mr. Smoltz, John Smoltz, who is very he's very against these velocity training regimen.
Is he really? I hadn't heard his take on it,
Yes,
but that's awesome to hear.
yes. He's because I think what the main thing that has happened is we've gone from a drop and drive. So when your first move to home plate is down, that's going to keep your arm on time. Now, the NPA, velocity, tread are teaching you to leap forward, to take this longest stride. Well, when you take the long stride, right, it's a kinesiological term called the length tension relationship. And what that is my bicep is really strong here in a shortened position. It's not strong out here with my elbow extended. So if I'm going to curl something from here, I don't have as much strength as I do here. So they're taking these enormous strides, and the body does not have enough strength or ability to rotate the spine around the front leg. And they're trying to get this whip, they'll even say whip action from this layback from their arm, which is the opposite of how you generate power. Bruce Lee and Mike Tyson will like choking on the fact that this is not how you build power. Mike Tyson doesn't take a left hook from South America, bring it up through Texas and into Canada, right? That's just not how you generate power.
Yeah.
Never has. But what they have done is they have used this whip because what the structures are pliable, like an elastic band, and they do have elasticity. So you're using that elastic, and we know what happened after we use an elastic too many times. It snaps, and that's what's happening.
And now go and add more weight than a regular old baseball, and you're just adding
Correct.
tension on those ligaments that soft
And
tissue.
accelerating the ball. The other thing is accelerating the ball, what I call uphill from behind your head, not downhill with gravity. So who have you seen online that you think is doing this right or has the answers? Most of those people are shunned. I would be one of them.
Well, ironically, both of them have doctor in the beginning of their name.
Oh,
You
okay.
and have you ever heard of Dr. Tyler Winfield?
I have, yes. Yep. Yep.
I've watched him. I like what he's about. He's very anti weighted balls. I don't know every single thing about him. I haven't gone into his facility. He's out in Texas and just checked out everything about him. But from what I gather, we're on the same wavelength of, what is more likely to create injury, um, and what is not. He's very streamlined. He doesn't like plyos at all. I think he's even said outright, I can't stand the idea of throwing heavy, like, I don't even know this, but Driveline promotes 12-ounce baseball.
Oh, yeah. I had my
baseball.
first gal with
Mhm.
Tommy John surgery 2 years ago. Because there's a softball equivalent to this heavy ball stuff.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yes, it's called high level throwing, and they're throwing heavy balls. And locally, she was throwing heavy balls out in an outfield and tore up her elbow.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing, right? So it's it's disturbing. And every day I'm out saying things, and every day, by these bots, right? So just so you know, parents, when someone posts something and there's already 4,000 likes, 3,995 of them came from Bangladesh or came from a bot. Okay,
And the
it's
first
just
one, they like their own post.
right, right. And it's like I say, it's a cult. Like they just have this. People will attack, and then of course you look at their social media and be like, bro, you're attacking what I'm doing. You have a labrum tear, or you
Yeah.
have you've had Tommy John surgery. Hello. That's why I said it's literally like a cult. It's a cult.
It kind of breaks your heart because in the history of the game, guys, we didn't have to keep track of, there's excess to everything, right? But we weren't keeping track of, 100 exactly. You can only throw 90 pitches at certain age. All of that stuff makes sense for load management, right? I want to say that, like, I'm not anti, pitch counts. But the ridiculousness is that we're focusing on guys that, it used to be commonplace for a guy to throw, 100, 120 pitches in an MLB start, and we didn't have any of this rash of Tommy John surgery. So why is that an issue?
Fernando Valenzuela threw 10 innings, God rest his soul, in a World Series game.
Yes. But why all of a sudden are we having a huge rash of Tommy John surgeries, but yet our pitch counts are way low and everybody is super uptight about it, which again, I don't want to like get mad at the pitch count people. That is a factor like anything else. I mean, but it's nowhere near as detrimental to these arms as the training that these kids are doing.
Well, let's just look at this. So can you name one Major League Baseball player who cannot hit a fastball?
No.
Right. You can't play.
They didn't get there because they couldn't hit fastball.
Exactly. Now, there are people that can't hit breaking pitches. There are people that can't hit changeups, right? Many, okay? So let's look at velocity. Garrett Cole, who's now down with another elbow injury, left a Yankee spring training game the other day with an average fastball velocity of 97.8 miles an hour.
Yeah.
He gave up a bunch of hits, 2 left the yard. There was a walk. Okay. It's not velo that's getting people out. I'm sorry. Like, besides Nolan Ryan, name another perfect game or no hitter where a guy threw 97 miles an hour. It's location.
Yeah.
It's movement. You can hit a fastball. Now, I mean,
Mhm.
and I don't know how they got into this craze, but I mean, do you think it's good baseball to watch a World Series game where the starter's out after 4 innings? I don't.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like
Yeah.
how, like, right? And the last four World Series, oh, here comes third time through the order. He's out. Like,
Yeah.
what is that? I don't get it.
It's a changing environment, and it's just a matter of like pointing out what the problem is, because I love this game, and again
Well,
I'm
first you
not
have to
gonna,
admit
yeah,
there's a problem.
or figure out what the problem is, and that's what
Hmm.
they're not doing. They're
So,
blaming, because the people that research this stuff all have money on the line, like
hmm.
okay, so I hate to beat up Driveline. Well, I don't, but I'm going to keep going back to Driveline because there are so few studies that actually look at where the stressors are and try to understand what is common in the injuries. There's only been maybe 7 studies published that you can find. All of them but 2 were published by Driveline. The
Hmm.
2 studies that are not published by Driveline, that didn't have any money on the line, they weren't selling anything. Both of them said that using weighted balls and weighted plyos significantly increased the chance of injury, as much as 25%.
Hmm.
Like, no, not 25%, like it only increases your likelihood of injury 25%. They were saying 25% of the people that use this training had injuries.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
insane. That's
It's crazy.
insanity. And Kyle Bodie, who has nothing but money involved, who's got the ears, and his lackeys have the ears of major league programs, are telling him that that doesn't have anything to do with it.
It's
That it
because
doesn't
they are,
significantly
someone
add
explained
stress.
to me, actually, Jim Rooney, who's been on my podcast, and I've been on
Yeah.
his, he's a former Major League pitching coordinator, completely disenchanted with all this velocity crap.
Hmm.
Basically, driveline tread, they speak to Major League Baseball in terms of the D word, data. They are just real. So you said, especially driveline is a data company.
Yep.
So they're just pounding Major League Baseball with data, increases in velo, that of course leaving out injury. And right now, Major League Baseball doesn't have scouts and baseball guys in their front office. They've got Yale, Columbia, and Harvard nerds, and they're
Hmm.
just soaking up that data, and everything is data driven. There's nothing, so
Heck, they're
third
even
time through the
driving you.
lineup, they got to come out, and even with this pitch count, like I want to get rid of the pitch. I should say get rid of it because I think it's got its place. I want to
Yep.
add to it, right? Because it's just an arbitrary number. You and I can go on the mound opposing one another. I could have flawless mechanics and get the 50 and my arm feels great. You could be, can't stand on one foot. You throw 50, the damage to your shoulder compared to mine could be exponential. We
Right.
have to have in-game movement and strength tests between innings to make sure these kids' arms are maintaining strength and not having fatigue. So that, like, 51, the 51st pitch isn't the last pitch they throw for 2 years. That's the issue. But
I don't.
there,
I agree with
it's
that.
it's just so much out there. And to me, the solution is very simple. Number one, there's no testing. I can guarantee, give me 1,000 drive line athletes, every single one of them are going to fail a basic squat test. Every single one of them. They're going to not be able to stand on one leg. Okay. Because I've seen it in 31 years. I've had Olympians who can't do proper squats.
Yeah.
And how do you put all of this huge force on top of a base of support that can't handle it? It's kind of like putting in the penthouse of a skyscraper before you build a parking garage. It's a recipe for disaster.
Hmm.
And that's what I see.
Well, when it comes to the pitch count, because we're in agreement on this, and again, I'm not saying it has no relevance, but it is not the problem. I'll give you my best example, and one of the more famous ones. It's easy. Sometimes it's easier to look at non-pitchers. So Jonathan Lucroy a catcher who's had a good long career, a good hitting catcher. Uh, he was looking to build his arm strength because he was worried that his defensive metrics weren't high enough. And so guess what he did? He did drive line.
Oh boy.
And then he had a Tommy John surgery.
There's
There
so many
was no
position
pitch counts
players.
involved, really. You know,
Nope,
yes,
there's so
throwing the
many
ball back.
position players. I think the Yankees had 3 position players. I mean, there's Dominguez there, the Martian, their
Yep,
star.
guess
I
what he
mean,
was throwing?
same thing. So the Yankees, you know, Juan Soto was a Yankee only for the fact that Dominguez blew out his elbow because he was going to be the starting outfielder, but they had to wait a year because he had to come back from Tommy John surgery.
Yep.
And I just, a position player, and that gets me into the other thing too, because I am not a proponent of long toss for that simple reason. Like you want to throw 90 feet on a line with your same mechanics, but these kids I see throwing 200, 300 feet, tilting their spine. You know, people will say it helps mechanics. Well, tell me how doing something opposite of how you're supposed to move improves your mechanics.
Well, I won't lie. I don't hate long toss, but I hear what you're saying. It has to be done the right way.
Correct.
When it comes to long toss, you're not supposed to, you know, have huge tilt and throw abnormally and put a bunch more stress on your UCL. There's a very structured way to do it.
Find me a kid doing it correctly.
Yeah. Well, see, that's part of the problem is it when it comes to something like that, that's actually what gives a lot of these guys outs. You know, the guys that are teaching our kids the wrong way, they'll say, "Oh, well, they were doing this wrong or this wrong." Well, I will tell you right now, you could have a kid doing long toss wrong, and it's not going to do nearly the damage that it is when they're doing what do you call those running guns?
Oh
Where
my God. I can't even watch those.
oh,
Those
for
are so
goodness sake.
bad.
Like, but they're okay with that. You know what I mean? But they'll blame it on 50 other things and say that's the contributing factor. It's not their training. When
I
you can
always like the
hear their
run and
UCL
gun.
stretch.
I always like the run and gun and the forward roll that they
Oh
do
my gosh.
after.
And
So
then they
someone,
put these things on social media like this is a good thing. And here I am. I can hear their UCL tearing as they're doing it. I'm like, this is not a good thing for you, kid. There's no way that is advantageous in any way.
so I have a post pinned to my account. I did a camp at Montreat College 2 years ago. Literally, I was in the same town where the hurricane came through and leveled the town. Beautiful school, NAIA school.
Yeah.
And I had most of the team come out for the camp. Some had their own trainers that did not want to come. Everyone who did not come to the camp and were using their own trainers, they were all injured that year. Funny enough.
Yeah.
So one of the kids, the former pitching coach has now left because he just has had enough of this. He just like left careers. He had sent me the Plyo-ball program. So first of all, the biggest thing was you're going to throw at 80%. Okay. Find me an athlete that can knows the difference and can move the difference between 90 and 80% or 50%. What is that? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And the amount of balls that they were throwing, even at 80%, daily was shocking. I still have, like, I want to say, I don't have it in front of me, but over 50, 60 baseballs of these weighted balls, like,
oh my gosh,
not working, not doing any core work, no Olympic lifting, no scapular stabilization exercises, just plyo balls. That's what their program was. And he's hurt and he's not come back. Actually, I think he was hurt, had Tommy John surgery, and got hurt again.
Oh, I believe it. And I can almost see his training to get back.
Yep.
Because he did the same thing, did not realize that that's what probably hurt him in the first place. And then he goes and does the same thing. And every single time you do it, every single throw, it is an accumulative effect. And you were
I always say the next throw could be your last.
Yeah. It's just a matter of what hurts most or bad enough to where you have to go get it checked out. It's not a matter of if it's happening, it's just how long it takes until.
So I have a lot of parents listen to the podcast. You're a parent, you're a coach.
Yes, sir.
A parent is listening to this. Maybe they've seen Driveline, maybe, maybe their kids are doing heavy balls. What is your advice to them? if you had them in a room for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
Oh man, I would say don't do anything weighted for your kids. And if you're going to teach your kids the right way to throw a baseball to where even in their warm-ups and their practice, it's intentional. Make sure that they warm up properly and that they have good mechanics. Take anything that someone, if they have financial gain at all, look into what they're saying and do the research, dig in, because man, these kids, we don't want them hurt. We don't want them getting injuries, and it is not worth it, period. And the growth of these kids is going to be strongly affected or affecting their development to where they can put themselves in jeopardy if they're doing things wrong. Let's enjoy this game. If I could do anything, I would get rid of all weighted balls, all plyos. I would teach long toss, but it has to be something that you're right next to them, making sure that they're doing it the right way. Don't let them be 16-year-old kids that get lazy and just start hucking a ball, and then it's detrimental to what they're doing.
Agreed.
Follow doctors' advice, because doctors know. Doctors with baseball background are going to know a lot more than some dude with an engineering degree trying to sell you plyoballs. And pay attention to the injury rate and what those guys did wrong so you don't replicate it.
Exactly. Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on. That was fantastic. And
Yes, thank you
guys,
so much.
listen, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Help me save 1 million arms. We need it. We might not even have 1 million left by the time this velocity thing times itself out. But
Yes.
well,
Oh,
thank
and
you very
that's
much.
another thing. If there's
Yeah.
any college guys out there, quit using straight velo as your metrics, man. Get out and watch kids that throw low 80s and have awesome break-in stuff that are getting kids out. ERAs matter, not just velo. There's a lot of different ways to recruit these days, and let's start looking at that stuff too, because it's helping drive these injury rates. So I would love it if college guys, scouts would start recruiting kids that are good, that just aren't, flaming up the radar gun.
Right, because right now I can't even imagine who, if there ever will be another 300 game winner in Major League Baseball, and that
Oh
is
yeah,
very sad.
it's a very unlikely unless things change greatly.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man. Have a great weekend, and thank you guys for listening.